I call the meeting of the Environment and Natural Resources, Finance and Policy Committee to order. A quorum is present. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve. Representative Purcell, would you like to move the minutes from February 28th?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Representative Purcell moves to approve the minutes from February 28th. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Representative Jacob, would you like to, let's see, were you, oh, I got to get, yeah, the joint one I need. Representative Brand, would you like to move the minutes from February 28th, the joint committee meeting?
And that's the informational hearing, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Yep, I move the minutes for the informational hearing.
Representative Jacob moved the minute from the February 28th informational joint capital investment environment and natural resources committee.
Representative Brand.
Brand. Representative Brand. Representative Brand. Sorry.
What your voice changed?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. And then we have a minutes from October 23rd, is that correct? Of 2023. So Representative Jacob, would you move those from October 23rd, 2023?
I'll move to approve the October 23rd, 2023 minutes.
Representative Jacob moves. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Members, we have a series of bills today, and we have members and presenters who are going to be coming and going throughout the day. So we are going to start first with Representative Bierman, House File 3416, rulemaking related to solid waste disposal facilities. We estimate about 15 minutes of time. I will move that House File 3416 be laid over for possible inclusion in a future bill. Representative Bierman, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members, for hearing this landfill closure bill. Just some high-level points about the bill. After landfills close, some monitoring maintenance work is still needed to ensure protection of human health and the environment. Generally, this level of care is required for 20 years after closure. However, sometimes there are still concerns about the status of the landfill after 20 years. The rule language is slightly ambiguous, so could be interpreted to mean landfills automatically exit post-closure care immediately when 20 years has passed. House File 3416 directs MPC to create clarity in rule language so it is clear that existing post-closure care requires the approval of the commissioner. Mr. Chair, I do have the department here if there are some questions that we'll want to get into a little deeper, but ready for questions when you are.
Welcome, Mr. Johnson. Introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. For the record, my name is Tom Johnson, Government Relations Director for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Thanks for the opportunity to testify on 3416. This is an MPCA policy bill, and so just want to really thank Representative Bierman for authoring it for us. It's a simple bill, Mr. Chair, as Representative Bierman laid out, but it is an important bill. There are some ambiguities in the rule language, and this would provide clarity not only for the agency but for our regulated parties. We're asking the legislature for good cause exempt rulemaking because it's a very small change. Only one sentence is needed to create that clarity. The commissioner's authority remains the same. We already have the authority to extend post-closure care beyond that 20 years. We would just want to make sure that that approval process is something we're creating in rules, so it's very clear for everybody involved. So thank you for the opportunity to testify myself, as well as I have a subject matter expert with me if there are detailed questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Members, are there any questions for the author or the MPCA? Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You might have to bear with me a second. I was hearing that the solid waste administrators had some questions about this bill. And what I was wanting to just ask is if MPCA can work with those folks relative to those concerns.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Heinzman. We work very closely with the solid waste administrators. Happy to work with them.
Representative Heinzman.
That's it, nothing else.
Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to testify for or against this bill? Mr. Martinson, come forward. Welcome, and state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Brian Martinson. I'm an Environment and Natural Resources Policy Analyst with the Association of Minnesota Counties, and I'm here on behalf of the Solid Waste Administrators Association, an affiliate of AMC's. We have concerns with House File 3416 and its impact on publicly owned landfills. Landfills in the state are currently required to fund post-closure care for a period of 20 years after they close their doors. Publicly owned facilities generally maintain a monetary fund, and any increases or extensions of that care period require changes and additions in the amount of the funding required. At this time, landfills are a necessary part of our solid waste management in the state. SWA supports the waste management hierarchy, and we understand the intentions of MPCA. The agency currently has the authority to extend post-closure care timelines for cause, and they have said they need this change to prevent facilities from slipping out of coverage without their review or affirming that the requirements have been met. These facilities are in post-closure care for 20 years. And with a known exit date, and they should have the ability to do their review on that timeline. This bill gives the commissioner the authority to change the post-closure care to an indefinite timeline with no requirement for their assessment and decision to be completed. SWA understands there may be a need to clarify the MPCA's role in post-closure care. However, we are not sure that a goods clause exemption has been proven necessary, and we would benefit from a public rulemaking process. The legislature, this legislation will cause unnecessary financial hardship for publicly owned landfills if the MPCA is not acting in a timely manner. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify for or against the bill? Members, any other questions for the author? Representative Bierman?
Final. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members, for the discussion. And we have, I believe it's going to be laid over, correct?
Yes.
So there's time for some more discussion going forward, as was noted. So thank you very much.
I renew my motion that House File 3416 be laid over for possible inclusion in a future bill. The bill is laid over. Members, next up is Representative Greenman. I see that she is not here, so we will move to Representative Finke. Representative Finke, House File 3617, use of critical habitat, private sector matching account modified, reports required and money appropriated. Would you like to move that House File 3617 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee?
Yes, so moved.
Representative Finke, to your bill.
Thank you, Chair Hansen and committee members. Sorry, move that one out of my eye line. This is a bill to related to the critical habitat license plates. It appropriates money to the DNR to be able to use those plates for the purpose that individual customers are buying those plates. So if you are buying the pollinator plate, the resources from that plate will go to support pollinators and straight on down the line. Excuse me. That's really all this bill does.
And we have Melissa Kuski, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Welcome. State your name for the record.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Hansen, committee members. My name is Melissa Kuski, and I'm the Deputy Director of the DNR's Ecological and Water Resources Division. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to testify today on House File 3617. The Critical Habitat Plate was created in 1995 to provide an opportunity for Minnesotans to contribute a nominal amount to conservation of the state's natural resources and show their commitment and individuality with a special vehicle license plate. The DNR appreciates and shares the desire to manage the critical habitat program as effectively as possible, and we do support the bill's requirement for a biennial legislative report on expenditures from the critical habitat private sector matching account. At this time, however, the DNR does not support the change in funding mechanism outlined in the bill, considering other recent changes that have been made to make it easier to invest these dollars. A key challenge for us historically in ensuring we make full use of available funds with the critical habitat match has been with respect to restrictions on funds. Because the critical habitat plate funds can only be spent if matched by private contributions, the balance in the account has grown in size as the license plate revenue has exceeded the rate of contributions. Recent statutory changes have increased some flexibility to make it easier to spend available dollars. For example, making the match 2-to-1 and allowing more funding for restoration and enhancement without the match. And the DNR is diligently working to advance projects and spend down the RIM Critical Habitat Match Fund. Though work yet remains on this front, adding in new limitations on how funds may be spent could hamper these efforts and associated work planning. This flexibility is doubly important as RIM Critical Habitat Match dollars support outcomes across a wide array of habitats that range from recovery efforts of rare pollinator species like the Dakota skipper to protecting intact watersheds for cold water fish like Cisco. The critical habitat plates have been a tremendous success story for natural resource management in Minnesota, providing the opportunity for Minnesotans to directly support the conservation of our treasured natural resources. It is important that the Minnesotans who purchase these plates see and understand any potential changes to how the funding from these popular plates would be used. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. I'm available to stand for questions as well as have colleagues from the DNR.
Members, are there any questions? Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, maybe this is a question for Ms. Kuski. So maybe I am just today years old when I learned that the different plates all actually go to the same fund. Is that how it currently is structured right now?
Ms. Teskey.
Chair Hansen, Rep. Purcell, yes.
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my reading of this bill looks like, I guess it's making true what I had just assumed, that pollinator plates went into a particular pollinator fund, that plates that had critical habitat went to a particular fund. So that's my interpretation of how the funds will then, if passed, then go into different pots of money. Is that correct?
Ms. Teskey. Yes.
Chair Hansen, Representative Purcell, that's our understanding of the bill.
I think, Representative Purcell, if you look on page 6 of 10 on the fiscal note, you can see the breakdown of how much comes in for each plate. Is that correct, Representative Finke?
Yes, that's correct. And you can see that, you know, the plates have been a great success, and we're not actually talking about that much money at the end of the day. It's about $400,000 a year, and a little bit of money for some of these projects could make a huge difference. So I think it's important that people understand that their money go where they think it's going. I was under the same impression that Representative Purcell was.
Any other questions? Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this might also be a question for DNR, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be difficult to answer today, but it would be interesting to know how much administratively, how much costs would increase divvying out all these amongst different accounts, and then the process that's being created, what that might cost to get those dollars out the door. I think I just heard that we're talking cumulatively about $400,000. Maybe I'm mishearing, but that might be a question. Once this, I think it's going to Ways and Means. I might be interested to know.
Representative Kuski or Ms. Kuski, Representative Finke.
Chair Hansen, Representative Heinzman, that would be something we could look into if the bill is moved on.
Representative Heisman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It may be counterproductive to create this whole other process, Mr. Chair. That's all I'm concerned about. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Hagemeyer, how much money, we've just had the forecast, how much money is in the account, the critical habitat account?
Mr. Chair, as the DNR just testified to, it's kind of a complicated funding stream where there's different matches and pieces like that. And it's not actually an account, it's appropriation IDs in the accounting system. Until a couple of years ago, there was in excess of $30 million. The legislature made a number of changes the last 2 years, and I think it's around $20 million balance at this point.
I see Mr. Rivers coming close. Could you answer that, or roughly?
Mr. Chair, members, Pat Rivers, Deputy Director for the Division of Fish and Wildlife. I believe our current balance is $22 million. You are correct, it was higher, and we're working to spend it much more quickly. So $22 million at this time.
Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak for or against the bill? Representative Brand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm a little bit confused because I see the agencies here and they have some concerns with the bill. My question is this, and this will help me ease my mind on this bill. Which of these plans, what we have in existence now or what we're proposing to change, will actually make a bigger difference with critical habitat, with land acquisition and that sort of thing? Because I think that's at the end of the day where we need to be moving towards. What's the best bargain?
Representative Finke.
Thank you, Chair and Representative Brand. I guess I unfortunately can't answer your question directly. I don't know which project will have the best bargain for the buck. I think that what we're trying to say here is that we want to make sure that our bucks are going to all of the available bargains that we might be able to find. Sure. If we have people who want a plate that has that they believe is going to support a specific piece of our natural resources, as we heard, then hopefully we can find a project that will do that in an efficient way.
Representative Brand.
Follow-up question. Maybe the agency or staff could help me out with that as well. Can I get some more clarification on this as well? Because I've got 2 moose plates, right? Both of my vehicles are registered. They've got moose plates, and I want to believe that whatever I'm doing, that money is going to something, right? And we know it's going to something now, but if we change it to for instance, if I had pollinator plates instead of moose plates, it would go to the pollinators. But I think at the end of the day, it's all part of the same mission, right? So we're talking about protecting resources. We're talking about developing opportunities for recreation. We're creating opportunities for people to view wildlife. I think that's kind of the values that we have as people who buy these plates, is that we want to see that there continues to be some sort of benefit to the public, right, for purchasing these plates. So I guess since the agency had concerns with this bill, I just want to see, are there unintended consequences of this bill that maybe we don't want to pursue this? If I could get some more clarification on this.
Ms. Kuski or Representative Finke.
Chair Hansen and committee members, currently the language in the statute, reads that the money in the account is appropriated to the Commissioner of Natural Resources for the direct acquisition, restoration, or enhancement of land or interest in land is provided further in the statute. I think our inclination is the interpretation that I think you're feeling, which is many of our projects do multiple things. A project to help recover, like I said, mentioned the Dakota skipper, that helps to enhance prairie ecosystems that provide habitat for species like this. And so we look at our projects kind of more cross-disciplinarily. And so just from a support of the mission, I think that is generally the way that we interpret what makes the most sense. And then, to speak to what Deputy Director Rivers was saying previously, is just the additional flexibility that were provided just a couple of years ago to free up the way that we are able to spend these funds has made an improvement in our ability to advance projects and spend down the balance. And so at this point, we would really like to see the continued flexibility on that front to be able to advance the projects most efficiently and expeditiously.
Representative Scraba.
Thank you, Chair. I like that word that you use, cross-pollen or cross something. Because that's the way I look at this. I too always had this impression that, oh, the deer money, the deer went to the deer and everything. And looking at the numbers, the way they're set up, I kind of like the way you have it set up now, in the sense that if you are doing prairie enhancement, you are helping the wild turkey, you're helping the pollinator, you're helping the pheasant, you're helping kind of everything rather than getting a pile of money and say, this can only go to pheasants, or this can only go to moose. I don't see a problem. Maybe if you needed direction from the legislature saying more of the money collected by the loon should stay with the loon, but a certain percentage must go to everyone else. Because again, I look at 30% of the money collected for the plates for the loon helps the pollinators, and that's important for the loon, to have plants and stuff by the water. So it's, I understand the intent of the bill, but I part of me still likes the way you're doing it because, that it's sort of the Minnesota way we help people that can't help themselves. So put it all in one pot and then divide up who needs the help and make it work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Finke.
Yes, thank you, Chair Hansen and Representative Scraba. I would just, I don't disagree with anything you said, other than the fact that we have $22 million of unspent money in this program right now waiting for us to do work to protect the resources that we all care about. And this is saying, let's use just a little bit of that, a little teeny bit of it to go to the things that we're saying people expect it to go to because they are paying. It matters to me that a person in the state of Minnesota who cares about a specific thing, they're giving a little, they're $30 of their money. Those $30 should go where they're going. The other $21.6 million that are in this fund will be continued to be spent by the DNR under the program.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then maybe to the DNR along the same line, then, if we are looking at what the fiscal note is saying that around for pollinators around 7%. So can you tell us currently of the 22 million that's left over, are you expecting to spend 7% of that to pollinator? And then what are you currently doing right now? Are we spending around, the interest that we have here, 7% of, whatever funding is coming in from critical habitat for pollinators or not?
Ms. Kiska.
Chair Hansen, Representative Lee, I would have to follow up with you to get back on the specific breakdown of the work currently that is supporting specifically pollinator work. But we do have in the work spending plans for that large balance that we've talked about. We do have some preliminary kind of scoping out of how and where we plan to spend those funds that we could also provide.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. More of a comment. I think, I could respect that there's a need for flexibility, but if we do get into the details, I do want to know if they are spending up to the amount that, there's interest in critical habitat for pollinators up to 7% or not. And if they're not, then I think this is a really valid, conversation for us to have. So thank you, Representative Finke, for bringing this forward.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the robust discussion on this bill today. I didn't quite expect that, but as we're going through this conversation, Representative Finke, I'm wondering if, and it maybe is there in the language, I could be totally missing it, but I'm wondering if your bill addresses the current 22 million. Are we asking that DNR go back through that entire amount and figure out which was to which account or could potentially be redirected to an account? Or are we just going forward with this new arrangement, Mr. Chair?
Representative Finke.
Thank you, Chair Hansen and Representative Heinzman. No, it does not indicate what percent. And as to Representative Scraba's description of how we spend this money, we are not interfering with that process at all in terms of this money. This is the money from the plates. It's $400,000 a year. It's not going through and saying every single piece of every single dollar.
Representative Heisman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'll try to be more clear. We're hearing that, Representative Finke, we're hearing that there's already $22 million in this particular account that's being affected by this. I'm wondering if we're going to go back in time. I don't know, I didn't see in the bill if it says we're going to go back in time and try to figure out how much of that existing balance came in, like, say, for example, because of the loon plate, and then redistributing those dollars going backwards. I don't see anything specifically indicating one way or the other. Maybe I'm missing that.
Representative Finke.
Thank you, Chair Hansen. No, we're not doing that in this bill.
Representative Heisman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there anywhere in the bill you could point to that indicates that? Representative Finke.
Representative Finke.
Thank you, Chair. That indicate, I mean, I can't point to the negative in the bill that's not in the bill, as I understand it, so that I can't actually point to it, but maybe we can get a lift from research.
Ms. Taylor.
Mr. Chair and members, the bill would become effective July 1, and so it would apply to revenues, generated after that date.
Okay. Anyone else to testify for or against the bill? Representative Finke to close.
Thank you, Chair and members, for the discussion. It's going to Ways and Means, so there's more discussion to be had, and I appreciate your support.
Representative Finke renews her motion that House File 3617 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it. It is on to the Ways and Means Committee. So Representative Finke, Representative Greenman is smiling right behind you, and I think she may have to go somewhere else. So if we can revert.
I'll give you a break.
Yeah.
So House File 3376, Representative Greenman, digital image use as proof of possession. We've heard this bill before. I will move that House File 3376 be placed on the general register. Representative Greenman, I believe you have an A3 author's amendment. Can you please explain the amendment?
Thank you, Representative Hansen. Or Chair Hansen, I have it listed as, well, you tell me what, I might have an old copy. If someone could, I just want to make sure it's listed the right number.
A3.
Okay. I must have had an old copy. Yes, Mr. Chair, the A3 amendment. Would you like?
Representative Jordan, why don't you move?
Mr. Chair, I move the A3 amendment to House File 3376.
Representative Jordan moves the A3 amendment to get the bill in the form the author would like. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The A3 amendment is adopted. Representative Greenman, to your bill as amended.
Thank you. And I was just seeing that Representative Listegaard is leaving. I was going to say that part of the reason I did this amendment was my favorite ranger, Ida Ricavina on the IRRB, called me after we heard this bill and said, I want to make sure that cross-country skiing passes are included. And I think we had a reading that it was, but we wanted to make that explicit in addition to horse passes. So what this, as folks remember it, I don't have the props this time, but this is the making sure that you're hunting, you're fishing, your horse license, or your cross-country ski pass, you can use it digitally. It also adds some language that I think is pretty standard that protects DNR officers from liability if they mishandle or if something gets broken. So it is the same bill you said, only better. So I'd ask for your support.
Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to testify for or against the bill? Are there any questions from members? Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Chair Hansen. Thank you, Representative Freeman, for bringing this back. as a Minnesota cross-country ski pass holder, I hope we have a winter in the future where I will be able to have my pass digitally. So thank you for the broadening and inclusion of several different types of licenses.
Any further discussion? Representative Greenman, any closing comments?
Thank you. I'll say that this is one of my favorite bills this year. It's nice to be in committee. Last time, I think we all learned that Representative Purcell did not break the law when she had her pass, and so this will make it really clear for everyone what they can do until the agency develops their new program. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd ask for your vote.
I renew my motion that House File 3376, as amended, be placed on the general register. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. No. Ayes have it. 3376, as amended, is adopted. And Representative Greenman, you'd happily take other co-authors to sign on the bill, correct?
And I would happily take other co-authors to sign onto the bill, you skiers, hunters, fishers, or horseback riders. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Representative Jordan, House File. Oh, Representative Finke. House File 3461, Forest Industry Data Classified. Representative Finke, would you like to move House File 3461 be laid over for possible inclusion in a future bill?
Yes, that is my motion.
Representative Finke, to the bill.
Thank you, Chair Hansen and members. House File 3461 is a bill that classifies certain survey data as private. We heard this bill in Judiciary a week or two ago, and it's a very simple bill. DNR collects survey data from companies that do business with forest products in order to get a more comprehensive understanding of how our forests are being used. Some of that survey data will be reclassified as private. That's all.
And you have one testifier. Joe Drimmel, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Welcome to the committee and state your name for the record.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. John Drimmel, Section Manager, DNR Division of Forestry. So each year, our utilization and marketing program surveys or works with the U.S. Forest Survey to survey a subset of the 800 forest products businesses in Minnesota. We aggregate that data into a report and make that publicly available. The report shows data on resource conditions, acres of forest, age class information, and ownership, as well as how much wood is harvested in Minnesota. This helps inform businesses on where to invest and helps agencies ensure sustainable management. It helps DNR forest management planning. So some worry that if they share information with DNR, others can find out and a competitor can gain an advantage. This becomes a barrier and they may not respond to the survey or may not answer the questions fully. Recently, we've taken on more responsibilities in the surveys. By doing that, we'll have better access to the survey data and enable us to produce the report more quickly. But we want to be sure that we could protect the private individual business data. This legislation will make that individual mill information not public. It would give the businesses that confidence to answer the survey questions completely and would increase the response rate from those businesses. This results in more accurate, reliable forest resources industry data that allows lawmakers, state and local governments, research institutions, and business owners to make sound resource management decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to testify for or against the bill? Anyone else? Any discussion from members? Representative Brand.
I'm not one of the 800 forest product companies that are in our state, but what kind of questions are on the survey?
Mr. Drummond.
Chair, Representative, so it's basic use information. What kind of species do they take delivered? How much volume of each species? And what do they produce? So some pretty basic information, but also maybe considered proprietary by that business because of competition and prices and everything else that goes along with that.
Any other questions? Representative Scraba.
Mr. Chair, and I missed your name.
Mr. Drimmel.
John Drimmel.
Mr. Drimmel. So timber company that gets the wood from the logger, are they the ones that are going to document this, send it to you? And that is not public information, though, correct?
Mr. Drimmel.
Chair and Representative, so that's what we're trying to make sure is not public. And again, so for a DNR timber sale, we get that scale back so we can account for and charge our permit holder appropriately. What this survey does is a more broad, it's questions that go across the board. So we understand, county, state, and private wood that goes to these mills to get the full picture of what's being used in the state.
Representative Scriba.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So part of my concern is wood is being global. It's a global market now. And if you put a sale up in northern Minnesota, part of it's going to go to Sappi, part of it's going to go to PCA, part of it might go to Wisconsin, depending on what mill gets what. And the numbers, again, if I'm an investor from Wall Street and I'm trying to figure out what company I'm going to move around, this is really good information for me to have, and I don't have to pay for it. I'm like, wait a minute, that's unfair to the businesses. That's the way I'm seeing it. So how much wood or what they do is how they do business. But if you can protect that, for me, that's, I got a red flag. I started thinking about this, and I'm kind of concerned. Again, if it's just to you for setting up sales and things like that, that's great, because again, that's your role to know where it's coming from. But I'm more concerned about getting it to the wrong people. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Drimmel.
Chair and Representative, that's exactly right. We don't want that individual mill data going back out to everyone. The data consolidated does go to the Forest Service, so it is a national effort. And in conjunction with that estimate of wood use, with what's growing in the state is how businesses use that information of, should I expand, should I invest? And I agree with you, it's like that individual mill data, we don't want folks sharing beyond us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it.
Any other questions? Representative Finke, any closing comments?
Appreciate your support.
Representative Finke renews her motion that House File 3461 be laid over for possible inclusion in a future bill. The bill is laid over. Next up, House File 4015, Representative Jordan, native rough fish provided, conforming changes made, and taking possession fish. Representative Jordan, would you like to move your bill?
So move, Mr. Chair.
And Representative Jordan is moving that House File 4015 be placed on the general register. Representative Jordan, I believe you have an A1 authors amendment, and it's a technical amendment suggested by House Research. Would you like to move that amendment?
So move, Mr. Chair. For members, this is a technical amendment. It does remove a section that was inadvertently, hard word, added from the Game and Fish Bill, and it clarifies common carp within the bill, and I ask for member support.
Any discussion on the A1 technical amendment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The A1 technical amendment is adopted. Representative Jordan, to the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to start with a moment of gratitude for members of this committee. This bill comes from the report that we as a committee advanced and funded as part of House File 245 last year. That was the no junk fish. This is the no junk fish bill, part 2. And within this bill, we make a really big change where we change rough fish in statute to native rough fish. And while that sounds like a rather small change, it's actually quite a big change, and it's one that will make a big difference for our DNR as they work to protect our native fish. This bill looks a little wonky. Bill looks a little wonky, but it's because rough fish are all over our statutes, just like native rough fish are all over Minnesota and deserve to be protected. It doesn't change much of our law, but it really just changes the name. And this bill is supported by our DNR and fish enthusiasts across our state. I would love to turn it over, Mr. Chair, to a bill walkthrough from the DNR and from testimony from our advocates.
So from DNR. Welcome, and state your name for the record.
Thank you, Chair Hansen, and members of the committee. My name is Shannon Fisher. I am the Fisheries Populations and Regulations Manager with the Division of Fish and Wildlife at the Department of Natural Resources. Thank you for the opportunity to briefly speak today about House File 4015. The Department of Natural Resources submitted a legislative report on native fish conservation in December 2023. The legislative report on native fish conservation included a summary of research needs and activities and a series of DNR actions and initiatives. The report also included 2 recommendations with calls for legislative action, the first being to eliminate the current rough fish definition in Minnesota Statute 97A.015 and replace it with native rough fish, the second being to grant expedited rulemaking authority to establish daily and possession limits for native rough fish. Regarding the first legislative recommendation, House File 4015 does exactly that. It calls for a change in the rough fish definition by replacing it with native rough fish. As Representative Jordan has mentioned, it seems like a rather simplistic change. However, it has some far-reaching impacts. The removal of carp also is part of this, and it brings some recognition, some long overdue recognition to these native species as part of our natural heritage. The change also elevates the status of these species, implying that these species belong here, have value, and should be part of ongoing fisheries management. A change in the rough fish definition, as was mentioned, however, catalyzes the need for approximately 60 clarifications and modifications in various statutes. The House Research Summary for House File 4015 does an excellent job of capturing those various changes across more than 40 sections. Many of the changes are needed to simply accommodate the physical definition amendment from rough fish to native rough fish. In most of these instances, the statutory intent remains intact as it pertains to native rough fish. In situations where the statute change must also apply to common carp, now removed or would be removed from the rough fish definition, common carp has been added. In some cases, the requested changes bolster native fish rough fish status. For example, a proposed change to subdivision 1 of MS 174992 adds native rough fish to the fishes and their eggs and sperm that cannot be taken from the wild for aquaculture purposes without proper compensation to the state. This action places value on these fish, value that has also been expressed in other parts of these changes in restitution liability, penalties associated with illegal sales, inclusion in fish packer licenses, and inclusion in significant public value determinations. I wanted to also follow up briefly on the second legislative request granting the DNR expedited authority to establish daily and possession limits for native rough fish. To be clear, the DNR already has the authority to promulgate rules establishing daily and possession limits. However, we were seeking legislative support similarly to how the DNR was asked to establish gar bag limits in 2022. The DNR has been conducting public outreach on native rough fish limits and will initiate a rulemaking process soon using the best available science and public engagement results. Efforts to establish native rough fish daily and possession limits will follow the state's rulemaking process, including a formal public comment period. The changes detailed in House File 4015 in combination with rules promulgation will help firmly establish a future for Minnesota native rough fish. These efforts will serve as a foundation on which native rough fish research, educational outreach, habitat improvement, and species management, as outlined in the Native Fish Conservation Legislative Report, can be built. Thank you for your time and consideration.
And we have some testimony. Thank you. Mr. Winter. Welcome, and state your name for the record.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Committee. This is Tyler Winter. I am a founding member of Native Fish for Tomorrow, and I also am an active member of the Isaac Walton League of America.
Proceed.
I thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of House File 4015 today because this is the first comprehensive native fish conservation bill in the country. 1 year ago, I testified in favor of the No Junk Fish bill, which required the DNR to report on the legal status and conservation needs of designated rough fish. And the bill before us is a result of a year of hard work by stakeholders, conservationists, and DNR scientists. The provisions in this bill are what the DNR scientists have recommended in the report to the legislator. The DNR also surveyed stakeholders and found 82% supported native fish receiving, quote, the same protection from waste and overharvest as birds and mammals. And the Minnesota Constitution requires that quote, "Fish shall be managed by law and regulation for the public good." The public good is bigger than one sport, one species, one trophic interaction, or one kid catching red horse. All those individual goods are best served by abundant and sustainable populations of native fish. So it is obvious that today's bill is supported by science, the public, and the law. The current statutory definition includes 1 invasive species and 26 native species. So scientific management requires that native fish be conserved and invasive species be minimized. Therefore, we must legally separate native fish from invasives. Then we can manage our native fish, protect their habitat, and enforce our laws. Because management for the public good requires legal reforms. Current state law provides more protection to minnows, leeches, crayfish, and empty mussel shells than to our native rough fish. The bill extends some of those protections to native rough fish. All sports people, especially those who utilize rough fish, should support these reforms because they are required for sustainable management of Minnesota's native fish, which will ensure we can pass on our heritage to our children. Thank you. I am prepared to take any questions.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to testify for or against the bill? Any questions for Mr. Winter or Mr. Fisher? Any questions for the author? Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And maybe Representative Jordan has someone who would like to speak to this. But first, I'm listening to the testimony today, and I'm hearing, a number of groups want this bill. And okay, that's fine, Representative Jordan, but I don't fully understand, first of all, and this is going to be to my question, what the impact of this will be to average sportsmen and women out in the field. That's a rulemaking process. We've talked about that. But quite honestly, I don't know what to tell folks back home. Like, what is this going to mean for those that are out there with their families and their bow fishing? Is this going to affect them positively, negatively? And the other thing, this would be more along the lines of a comment, but I'm hearing about conservationists supporting this, scientists supporting this, the public. I don't see the public here today speaking in favor of this, like from my district or from Representative Lislegar's district. I don't know if they've weighed in on this. I would love to see them in the audience today coming up to the microphone supporting this, but I'm not seeing that, and I'm not totally clear on what the bill is actually going to do, what the impact is going to be in my district and in Rogers' district and others around the state. And I don't frankly know if that question can even be answered. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking, not really fully understanding what the impact is going to be. And if that could be more specifically spelled out, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Heinzman. I think the DNR has done quite a bit of surveying, and I know Mr. Winter has also reached out to hunting, or not hunting so much, but angling groups, particularly some that work around dark house spearing and bow fishing. So I don't know if Mr. Winter would like to talk about his engagement or if the DNR would like to talk about their engagement and how they anticipate this impacting anglers across the state. But maybe Mr.
Winter's in here. Why don't we hear from him, and then we'll bring up the DNR.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. I didn't have time in my prepared remarks to get into my experience in the Native Fish Work Group, which was also happened last summer, where stakeholders were engaged, and then there were public surveys. So I think we had almost 600 people take part in a public survey, which was sent out to interested parties, stakeholders. Everyone had a chance to contribute. And like I said, in the results, over 80% of people supported native fish receiving the same protections from waste and overharvest as birds and mammals. Furthermore, this bill, it does a lot of things like tweaks to laws that allow for other laws and for things to be in effect. There was a provision in law that required culverts or bridges to allow fish passage for streams with game fish, which ignored the fact that some of our rough fish are actually already listed as species in greatest conservation need. So now our culverts and bridges are going to have to allow fish passage. Well, habitat was one of the major things that came out of the Native Fish Work Group. Everyone agreed that we needed to protect habitat if we're going to have these fish. Things like the restitution values, well, the law 97.8.341 specifies that if somebody is charged with a wildlife crime, the restitution value has to be listed on the warrant or the notice to appear in court. Well, there hadn't been restitution values. So now we're going to be able to enforce, we're going to be able to fix that so we can actually enforce the laws that are already on the books. So if your constituents aren't breaking the law, they should see no change whatsoever. But as we actively manage these fish, we can use their ecosystem benefits. Many of these fish eat zebra mussels. If you have zebra mussels in your lake, you want more freshwater drum or more red horse. Golden shiners actually lay their eggs in the nest of a bowfin. So if we have more bowfin in our water, that could actually help with the bait shortage. These are ecosystem services we can get for free from these fish just by managing their habitat and enforcing the laws on the books.
Representative Hansen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you for the long discussion, but quite honestly, doesn't get at the question that I'm asking. I don't know what the average impact is going to be for folks back home. And it sounds like that's still yet to be determined. Those may be things that you hypothesize will be affected, and that's maybe positive, I don't know. But I'm going to have to answer questions, at some point when this, assuming it becomes law. So I'd love to hear more from advocates back home, and we can't get that today. They're not, maybe they don't know, just like I don't know, what the rulemaking process is going to affect going forward. So my question still remains unanswered. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Jordan, we were here last year, right?
Mr. Chair, we were here last year, and as Mr. Chair, Representative Heinzman, as Mr. Winters said, there really shouldn't be much of an impact on our constituents whatsoever, apart from all of the beneficial ecological benefits that our native fish bring to our ecosystems. As to the specific rulemaking process that the DNR has done, I do know the DNR has done quite a bit of public engagement on this. This was a topic at the DNR roundtable, for example, where that was filled with anglers from across the state. I do know that there were anglers from many of our districts there that were participating in that discussion. So I do know that there has been engagement done. There is also a public comment process as part of the DNR's rulemaking process. There might be other areas for constituent engagement as well. I would encourage you to, talk about this in your newsletters. I sent out, I send out a weekly newsletter. I endeavor to send out a weekly newsletter. I don't always succeed at that, unfortunately, but that's how I do constituent outreach and send that to anyone who signs up for it. I don't know if the DNR would like to talk more about their rulemaking process and the work they've done to engage anglers from across the state, but I do know that they have that ability here today, Mr. Chair.
Got a couple more questions on the doc, so why don't we go to Representative Scraba, and then we'll maybe bring up, I want to make sure questions get.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Jordan, and Mr. Winters. I got a few questions. Minnesota migratory waterfowl stamp. I'm a duck hunter. I buy the stamp, assuming it goes to the duck, kind of like the license plate thing. Thought it was going here. It goes everywhere. So the bill now, we're trying to switch it so that if you buy a license that shows a loon, the money goes to a loon. Here, it's saying the money's going to go to fisheries. I'm curious, do the duck hunters know, has it always been this way, or is it just a reinforcing? It says, clarifies the migratory waterfowl stamp revenues may be used for common carp barriers in response to the new definition of native rush fish.
Mr. Winter, do you have an answer to that?
Yes, I believe I can answer that. Thank you. Those funds were going to rough fish barriers, and so it's really just a name change because the barriers, the rough fish barriers, were intended to block common carp. But unfortunately, the phrase rough fish first entered Minnesota statutes in 1907, and so it has been used as shorthand for carp since that time. So it's really just a name change on barriers. If common carp do get into a waterfowl producing wetland, that is their ideal habitat, and it can be destructive to the vegetation that supports the docks. So,
Representative Jordan.
Mr. Chair, to clarify, there's no change to the revenue streams in this bill. There's only change to the name rough fish to native rough fish.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Scraba.
Also, as a whitefish netter in northern Minnesota, always called it a rough fish back in the day. It's a good fish, it's a clean fish, a well-eating fish. but we have lots of them, lots and lots and lots. And it's a healthy population in the lake. Does it affect, I see you specifically called out Namakan and Sandpoint, border waters. Do I have to include the lakes in my district? Well, this is my district too, but in like Basswood and the whole chain where there's no commercial netting, just us netting. Is it going to affect us? I'm curious.
Representative Jordan?
Mr. Chair, Representative Scraba, it should not.
Representative Scraba?
That's good. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Mr. Winter?
I would just like to comment and say that this bill is for the fish. It is not against the people. And in the case of the whitefish netting, you really can't tell. You can't limit how many fish swim in your net. And so I was happy to see that this law was written in such a way that it would still allow our traditional methods of harvest, like Cisco and whitefish netting. That's what this bill is about. Nobody wants to take away somebody's annual tradition. If somebody closed down my deer camp, I'm sure I would protest. This bill is really just about giving these fish the legal protections they deserve as a native species.
Representative Lidsegard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've asked several colleagues, and nobody seems to know who brought this bill forward, this idea, this thought process.
Representative Jordan?
Mr. Chair, Representative Lidsegard, this bill was brought forward by the DNR as a process of a report that the legislature funded last year.
And does DNR want to have a final word, or Mr. Fisher? Okay. Wanted to give you the opportunity. Representative Jordan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for the discussion. Much of this bill was written by the DNR as a report that was commissioned by us here. Most of this will be coming back as part of the DNR's game and fish bill. But this bill really was, the report idea was brought forward by Minnesota anglers and Minnesotans who care about our fish and our waters. So this is a bill that had origins in our grassroots and was brought forward by our DNR. So I would say that it is a fantastic bill. And I know that anglers will be grateful for us for passing it on. And so I ask for your support. Thank you.
Representative Jordan renews her motion that House File 4015 as amended be placed on the general register. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Ayes have it, the motion prevails. Next up is House File 3791, new electronic licensing system. And I will move that House File 3791 be placed on the general register.
Representative Hansen, would you like to move your bill?
I would move House File 3791 be placed on the general register.
Yes, and there are no amendments, so Representative Hansen, to your bill.
Members, we heard earlier today about the digital imaging. That kind of takes effect now, relatively now, but in the long run, moving to a new electronic system is what House File 3791. It makes changes to state law to allow the DNR to implement the new system. We passed a law last session requiring the DNR to offer electronic game and fish licenses. This is the implementation, and I have Mr. Ofelt here to describe the bill.
I have from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Dave Ofelt. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name and title for the record, and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, representatives. My name is Dave Olfelt, and I serve as the Director of the Fish and Wildlife Division at Minnesota DNR. I'm here to talk about House File 3791 and technical changes needed to game and fish statutes to allow us to move ahead with delivering a modern electronic licensing system for Minnesotans. DLS is the primary system we use to issue angling and hunting licenses and permits.
The ELS also registers and titles outdoor recreation vehicles, including watercraft and off-highway vehicles. Last fiscal year, the system processed 2.3 million license transactions and nearly 550,000 outdoor recreational vehicle transactions. Current system's been in place since 1999, and it's well past time for an upgrade. Our vision is to build a modern and secure electronic licensing system that serves all Minnesotans. And Minnesota IT and the DNR have been working hard over the last several years to get a modern ELS system in place, with plans to go live a year from now in March of 2025. We're building a modern and secure system that serves all Minnesotans. There's a lot of focus on the latest technology, but the system will serve everyone, whether you do your transactions on your phone or you buy your license at the bait shop or gas station. It'll be easy to buy licenses online from a license agent or deputy registrar. It'll be easy to register harvested animals. It'll be easy to register for firearms safety and skills training. And the system's going to be designed so that DNR staff can easily access information for enforcement and management purposes, and business processes are improved for agents, registrars, and DNR staff. Licenses and harvest registration have changed over the years. In order to modernize the system to meet the needs of today's customers, we needed to eliminate the requirement of a physical printed license and site tags. The new system will offer choices for Minnesotans. Customers will be able to choose to have a completely digital experience, print their licenses at home, or visit an agent to receive printed documents. Which leads us to the intent of this legislation. We went through statute and are proposing language that updates references to physical licenses, tags, and some stickers. There are a lot of them, and they are listed and described in the ELS fact sheet that's in your packet, this one here. In addition, I'd like to highlight one provision that we need in order to cut over from our current system to the new one. It authorizes the commissioner, in the event of a disruption of service, to exempt license possession if the licensing system is not available. We expect a short cutover period in about this time next year, and we're going to need about 3-day sort of license holiday in order for that to happen. Finally, I'd like to draw your attention to the information in your packet. We have this fact sheet that lists all the changes that we're proposing to statute. We have this infographic that talks about what registration of animals would look like on our new system. And then we have this card that if you scan the QR code, will take you to our website and give you updates on where the system is right now. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this bill? We will now go to questions from members. Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Hansen, you might know this, maybe not, but I just did want to take a second. Minnesotans still remember the Minlars debacle with Minute. Are we going to be buying an over-the-counter product, or are we going to be trying to create our own monstrosity here in Minnesota that could potentially extend that 3-day license holiday to Lord knows what?
Director Alfett.
Yes, thank you for that question. We are using the Minutes IT modernization playbook that was the result of MNLARS in order to make sure that doesn't happen. So we engage with stakeholders from the get-go on what makes a good system. We've talked to our vendors, the people that sell licenses, our deputy registrars, and we have a contract with a national licensing company. They're called Pay It, and the game and fish and the rec vehicle license is called Pay It Outdoors. They're nationally recognized. We went through a request for proposal process, received bids, and we selected that vendor about a year ago. So we've been working with that vendor for about a year, and we are on track to deliver in 2025, this time in 2025.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Heinzman, I certainly do not want to go through the MNLARS experience again. And I think that the agencies have learned from that experience. So we will keep asking them on progress. That's, I think, something on reporting. I like the QR code so that any Minnesotan can check on the progress right now.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So then a follow-up, Representative Hansen. Is there anything in the bill that would allow for the current system to continue forward if our expectations are unmet?
Director Olfett.
This bill, thank you, Chair and Representative, this bill makes the technical changes that would allow a new system to go into place, so it doesn't address that. We have a contract in place with the current vendor that is due to expire, and we will be implementing the new one in 2025.
Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to be clear, if all our hopes and dreams don't come to fruition and it doesn't work, there's some kind of problem, can we revert back?
Director Olfett.
Madam Chair, I think
Representative
part of the key is when we're dealing with the fishing and hunting licenses and all these, the implementation date is key. So we'll have the calendar year end, and then we have a new year coming in. So if people are buying a license in 2025, we're in 2024, it has the requirement has to be by March 1, 2026. I think trying to ensure that we have some type of backup is important. Happy to work with you on that.
Any further discussion from members? Representative Brand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question for the author or Mr. Arca. How many other states have something like this? Are we kind of on the edge, or the cutting edge of this, or are other states already done this?
Director Olfett.
Thank you, Chair. Representative, if you're asking how many states have this particular vendor, Arkansas, Ohio, or Michigan are a few. They're a national vendor. Are we on the cutting edge? We think that the features that we will be providing Minnesotans in a year will be at the front end of what customers expect, but this is not. This is built on solid technology that exists, and they're providing services elsewhere in the country.
Representative Brand.
Thank you, Chair Jordan. One more question, and I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around the next season coming up in 2025. If I harvest a deer, how will I won't have the physical tag. So what's going to be how we go forward to register and to make sure that I'm following the law?
Director Olfett.
Thank you, Chair. Representative, if you have your phone,
Yep.
you're going to be able to go to your deer and hit a few buttons and sort of notch your your virtual tag and register in the same moment. If you don't have a phone, you don't want to use a phone, there's going to be an option to print something off in paper, and you will be asked to record some information and then take your animal and to the gas station or the bait shop like you do now. So everybody can comply. We want everybody to be able to easily comply and also be able to take advantage of the tools that are there.
Thank you.
Representative Scraba.
Thank you. As a hunter, fisherman, I get my tags in Colorado via electronic, South Dakota via electronic. Everyone's doing it but us. So, and I know I was at the round table, and this was just a wee bit part of the discussion. I thought it was going to be more about this, and it wasn't. And I wanted to talk about, because I think we're so far behind that we need to get caught up in this. And I kind of exercise that now when I go to my deer. I register my deer with my phone immediately, right then and there. So where you have service, it works. You know, not everyone has service. So, and however that gets solved, that issue, again, we're talking about small parts of the population. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Hansen.
I renew my motion that House File 3791 be referred to the General Register.
Representative Hansen renews his motion that House File 3791 be placed on the General Register. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion prevails. Representative Hansen, any announcements at the end of committee?
Tomorrow we go a little long. We will be flexible on the agenda depending on when people can make it.
Representative Lislagard?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I would like to ask the Chair, though, I'm listening to some of the bills today, and Representative Finke kind of reallocating money and different accounts and stuff like that. I really would like to see us hear some bills regarding ATV that doesn't cost out of the general fund. It's a dedicated account, and they're, we're trying to diversify our economy and create jobs and tourism in northeast Minnesota, and it's not out of the general fund. I know as chairs, myself included, we were cautioned, prior to the forecast coming out, but this does not affect the general fund. It's money dedicated for that. So that's just an ask that we maybe take a look at some of that. And I know Representative Burkle has some projects within that bill as well. Thank you.
Representative Hansen?
Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Lislagard. We've heard those in the past. I would like you, as I've mentioned last year, to work with Representative Purcell. We have several ATV-related issues. I think there can be common ground on that. I like it when the members work together. That would be good. And so we have not scheduled next week yet. We're going to be looking at the calendar. As you know, we're running out of time. So I'm looking to have hearings, but we have not scheduled anything next week yet.
Representative Lislagard?
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I do agree with that. Members should be working together, but, I don't want to be having debates of not being able to do a project because certain bills are to limit or to not allow riding in the very place where we're trying to diversify our economy and stuff like that. So I will speak with Representative Purcell's, but I don't want that to be used as an excuse not to move forward with some of these bills that we're trying so desperately hard to stimulate our economy up north. Thank you.
Thank you with that. And with that, members, we are adjourned.